I'm Carla Hinton reporting for the Oklahoman and NewsOK.com. I'm here at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Enid, Oklahoma to talk to the Reverend Wade Burleson, who has been an early and longtime proponent of the creation of some sort of database or another tracking procedure to show where sexual predators have been in the church or its affiliates, to keep them from reoffending and to keep them from harming innocent people.
Back in 2005, I heard a story that became multiple stories about sexual predatory behavior in Southern Baptist churches, and the predators were caught, but then the case was covered up and they went to other churches and reoffended. And it really bothered me. So in the summer of 2007, at the Southern Baptist Convention, I made a recommendation that the leadership of the SBC establish a database to track sexual predators. Well, after a year of investigating, they came back in 2008 and said it's not possible. There's too much church autonomy, which basically means we don't have any control over churches. We're afraid we might miss somebody. We might get it wrong. So they said no. And it's frustrating. But I understand there are issues. I think my problem was not so much that they had questions and weren't sure how to resolve those questions. I was a little frustrated that it seemed as if there was an unwillingness to face the issue.
In 2018, Reverend Burleson went back to the Southern Baptist Convention and made his request again for some kind of system put in place for a database or any other procedures to track sexual predators within the Southern Baptist Convention. And this time his request was met with approval.
And the new president took the recommendation. People had asked me, do you think that anything will be different this time when they come back? And I was optimistic and said, I do, but since the exhaustive investigative report from the Houston Chronicle, I can guarantee you that change is coming because that article is like a punch to the gut.
In the 6 months since the Southern Baptist Convention granted Burleson's request for a study of some type to maybe create a procedure or a tracking procedure in place, the Houston Chronicle and the San Antonio News Express recently came out with a report, and they also created a database. Reverend Burleson is very hopeful that in the future, in the very near future, that the Southern Baptist Convention will create either a database of its own or some other tracking procedure. Reverend Burleson expressed his thoughts about the newspaper coming to the forefront and many, many, many victim stories.
I was sad. I'd not read the article, but one of the reporters called me after I'd read it and asked what I thought. Was it a good article? I said I wouldn't call it good. And then I gave an analogy. I had a cancerous lesion that was removed, and I would not call that good. It was painful. It hurt. But it was something that needed to be done. So the article was absolutely needed. And the sad thing for me, and I think maybe you even said it in your article, I was sad for the victims, some of the stories I didn't know. I was sad for the families. I was sad for the churches. I was sad for everybody involved.
The Texas newspaper's database includes news stories and other information about many offenders across the country, including 10 in Oklahoma. Those individuals were reported on previously, many of them by the Oklahoman. I reached out to the leaders of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma. Unfortunately, they could not go on camera, but they did release the following statement. This statement is from Hans Dilbeck, the Executive Director Treasurer of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma. Jesus teaches us to be more critical of ourselves than we are of others. In as far as this article helps us to deal more honestly and clearly with sexual abuse in our churches, and more redemptively with survivors. I welcome it. We need strong voices from within our fellowship and from the outside, pushing us to strive to do better. The Reverend Blake Gideon, senior pastor of First Baptist Church of Edmond and the president of the Baptist General Convention of Oklahoma, said, "I welcome every form of accountability. Southern Baptists must be held to a high standard. Sexual abuse must not be tolerated among us. It must be exposed at all costs. Abuses of this caliber should be dealt with immediately and with severity. We are not called to harbor, cover up, or ignore sexual abuse in any form. Instead, we are called to expose it for what it is: evil."